What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 21. Welcome to the preseason highlights-ish. I don't know what we're going to call it. It's not really a full preseason. And we're going to see some clips from what happened during the preseason. It was kind of an up and down preseason, but I think the expectation, I think the talk around this team, even though I think if you talk to a lot of these Jets players, I think you would hear the words of, they don't really pay attention to it a lot. They don't even know what people are talking about. But I think a lot of the talk around this team is that many people believe that this team is going to take a step back this upcoming season. This team is going to fall to around 5 to 7 wins, 8 tops. No one really expects this to be a winning football team because of the guys that they let go. And still, this team is still very young, and they expect a lot of plays like that. They expect a lot of mishaps, from this football team, which I get it. And new offensive coordinator. Our offensive coordinator's name, by the way, is Ed Green. He is our OC. We still have our DC from last year. So some change, on the offensive side of the ball. I guess to kind of maybe prop up the running game and stuff like that. So, I understand the talk. I understand the discussion that this team very well is going to take a pretty massive step back this season. Actually not a pretty massive step back. Let me take that back. A pretty sizable step back for where they were a season ago, and where they were a season ago was the number 7 seed in the AFC. And understand that the Bills probably are only going to get better. The Patriots are probably only going to get better. The Dolphins are going to do better next year. This season. I apologize, guys. It's not even actually super late right now. But I got to be better with my commentary. But I think many people just kind of view what's going on around the league and with all these other teams. I think everybody kind of anticipates this Jets team to take a sizable step back this upcoming season. Ronald Jones is not happy. He heard the trade rumors. He was not happy with the fact that the Jets were thinking about trading him, And I understand that, with the way that, he had to run behind a patchwork offensive line throughout a good portion of this season, of last year. The offensive line really, for I would say maybe 3 games tops, this offensive line was healthy. 3 games. I'm talking about the full squad of offensive line. And a lot of guys on this team were pulling the trade block during the offseason. So I understand why, certain guys would be upset, and I understand why Ronald Jones would be upset, because in the playoff game, he played outstanding football. And there's a legitimate argument could be made that they should have ran the football with him a lot more. He only had 14 carries. He had 83 yards on 14 carries, ladies and gentlemen. I think people who are saying we should have gave him the football more, has a great argument. A fantastic argument. So in my opinion, I understand that. I get that. And I think he just wants to feel wanted. I don't think he wants to start. Now the Jets did have an opportunity to trade him away in the offseason. And they actually had a trade in line with the New Orleans Saints for a pick and one of their middle linebackers. I'm blanking on his name. I apologize. But the trade did not go through, right? So, but he's Ronald Jones is still on the trade block right now, and so we'll see what happens with that. And you guys see on 3rd down and 10, Ronald Jones, makes the catch. Pretty much not for anything. Made for 2 yards. Yeah, 2 yards. And the game's over. And some of our rookies made some big plays. Levi Bates, he's going into his 2nd year. Christopher Herndon's going to be coming back next season. So this is going to be interesting. Could he be traded? And you also got to wonder, hey, if this team doesn't perform the way that they need to perform, will we see this team, go through a fire sale trade? That's very possible. Now, there's the trade for Ronald Jones. We ended up trading him after the game against the Titans for a 3rd round pick and a future 4th round pick in 2026. So we got a good amount for him for a guy that's 27 years old. So yeah. Now here's something that might come to the channel is some plays from the defense. I'm not really the biggest defensive guy. Let me make that very clear. I like playing offense. I like playing quarterback. If you want to say McKinley, MC, MC dog, are you a great Madden player? The answer is no. The answer is absolutely not. But I'm just trying to test some things out here, with the defense, and maybe one day, if I do a college football 26 dynasty, I actually know what I'm doing on the defensive side of the ball. Because if I do that, I kind of would want to play, one side of the ball. I would kind of like to do that. And look at this forced fumble that was recovered by Clifton Bayer, our 1st round pick, who will see a lot of action on the field. He will. He's going to get a lot of work on the field this year. And he's a big dude. He's a big boy. He's a big boy, or, number 14 can just be that small. But he seems like a big boy, Now, Jaden Parham, he's going on the practice squad. He was actually an undrafted rookie free agent with hidden development. That's why we picked him up for the preseason. So here is the roster. You have Ben Colvin, Keelan Lake, Kareem Whitfield being the 3 running backs on this team. Denzel Mims, Matthew Foster, Darian Wiley, Justice Jackson, Chris Ridley, and I think Mr. Peak, let's call him that. Mekhi Becton, Max Sharping, Marlon Finch, Noah Lockhart, James Estrada, Orlando Brown, Devin Clemens, Charles Amenahu, Jared Nelson, Quentin Williams, Tack McKinley. Those are your ends. Jonathan Allen, Cesar Alonso's, Tyreek Hill, Rashawn Gary, Fernando Morales. Now you got Owen Sullivan, Clifton Bayer, Anthony Wint. We got our second linebacker 6'4", and he can run. He got length and size, and it's gonna be fun to see him on the field. I cannot wait to see that young man go out and go to work, man. I really hope he turns into something special. Really, I hope that we actually have our tandem for the future with Owen Sullivan and Clifton Bayer. And I hope I'm saying that right. And I do have, if you guys don't know this about me, I do have a bit of a disability, with I am dyslexic, and sometimes I stutter, but I'm pretty sure I pronounced that correctly, and also my pronunciation can be a little bit off. But here are the quarterbacks around the league. Right here they are. And hold on one second. Sorry, I just realized part of the list, part of the other QBs wasn't in the video. But here are the other QBs. Mitchell Trubisky is still the starter in Chicago. You guys did just see the Washington got a new quarterback. We'll pay attention to him as the season moves along. Joe Burrow, he's now a Pro Bowl quarterback. Josh Allen, and I think without question, top 10 quarterbacks, you got to put those two in there. Drew Lock, he's still in Denver. Baker Mayfield, he's still in Cleveland. Marcus Mariota. I wonder how many more years is he going to be the starter in Tampa. I would have to imagine that we'll eventually see someone else be the starter in Tampa Bay, and they'll probably look for a quarterback in the draft. Now, you guys saw Mahomes, Winston, Dak Prescott, he's still in Dallas. Tua Tagovailoa, he's in Miami. Carson Wentz, no more Jalen Hurts, he is in Atlanta, because I think Colin Kaepernick retired. He now gets his chance in his 5th year. Jimmy Garoppolo, who led his team to the NFC divisional round last year, and there is Owen Phillips now in his 4th season. And I think if you talk about top 10 quarterbacks, you got to put Josh Allen and Owen Phillips in that conversation. Well, maybe Owen Phillips, he's probably on the outer edge, but Josh Allen, yeah, without question. There's Deion Dawkins, so here are the Buffalo Bills. Now, I will be adjusting some of these ratings, maybe to increase them to make it a bit tougher. To maybe bring out some really good games like we had last season. Because I thought some of the games that we had last season, I thought there were some really good games that happened a year ago. A lot of close ones, and we had some blowouts as well. We had a close one against Denver, but then, at the end of the year, we had a blowout against Miami, even though we had a close one against them in week 2. So it's going to be interesting, and obviously, we're going back to the stadium and playing against the team that, Owen had, probably his worst half of football of his career, throwing 3 interceptions in the second half. Can he overcome that? Can he overcome those demons? Even though, Owen seems like the guy that, he's not going to really be thinking about that too much when the game starts. He has to keep his mind in the present moment. Hope you guys liked the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And week 1 will be coming up next.